Hey everybody, so I have been gone for a while. I am struggling with getting videos up during this COVID-19 pandemic, but I thought that we could start this week off with something that's a little bit more lighthearted, a story time. So I have gone through an experience that probably a lot of people have never gone through before, and that's working with a wildlife filmmaking crew. So if you guys are a lot like me, I grew up just amazed by Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, all of these different nature documentaries, all of these films that would be put out, storylines with wildlife, that kind of stuff. And it just captivated me. So if you guys don't know by now, I'm a Arctic researcher and I focus on wildlife, and one of my main subjects are Arctic foxes. So of course, these are animals that are probably one of the cutest animals in the Arctic. Their pups are super cute. They have a really cool interaction with geese. Geese migrate up north and they have their pups right when the geese kind of start nesting, and there's this huge dynamic of survival between foxes and geese. So it really wasn't all that shocking for me back in the fall of 2018 when I got a notice that there was a company that really wanted to do a nature documentary series, and I really didn't hear very much else about it until I got on the plane and was at our research camp, and then they came in a couple of weeks later. So as the summer went on, it got more difficult to work with the filmmaking crew. I think one of the things that happened is that because they have a certain amount of time and a lot of money goes into this, like they were paying like I actually think that their budget was like $200,000 for 15 minutes on camera. Like it's only a part of an episode that was being filmed. And so their budget is huge and they're investing so much money into getting the appropriate shots. But with wildlife, you can never plan. At the very beginning, everyone in the film crew was really gung-ho about getting naturally occurring shots. But as the summer kind of went on, they started to realize that they only had maybe 4 weeks to get the shots that they needed or whatever. It became more and more urgent, and they decided that they would take more steps to get shots that they needed that were, I personally wouldn't consider necessarily ethical. So one thing that I had to deal with this summer was the use of drones with wildlife. If you're not familiar with the use of drones with wildlife, wildlife do not like them. They are not comfortable with the noises that drones make. Now, you can use drones, but you have to fly them a certain height above wildlife so that you don't cause any issues or stress to those animals. Now, one thing that I noticed with the filmmaking crew that I was working with was that at some points the drone was flown a couple of feet over foxes so that they would buzz the foxes. The foxes would freak right out, of course, and they would take off running. And the reason for that was because they wanted to get shots of foxes, aerial shots of foxes running across the tundra. So that's just an example of something that happened that wasn't necessarily the best. And it was just a way for them to get the shot that they really needed. If you look at wildlife filmmaking, that's a very common thing to happen. If you watch films where you see caribou running or any prey species running and there's beautiful aerial shots over them, chances are that there's not a predator running after them, it's a drone that they're using to create that shot. So when I talk about the film crew, they were split into two different teams. So the first team that came in, they came in to film the winter portion. And then the second crew came in to film the interaction with geese and the pups. And so the first film crew, I really started to see that urgency where it got to 2 weeks before they had to leave and they hadn't gotten a lot of the shots that they needed. And all of a sudden it was well, what can we do to make sure that we get these shots. And so then I started seeing all of this buzzing of foxes with drones and planting, you know, pieces of caribou to try and get shots with the foxes and all of that kind of stuff. I also started to see with that first crew that came in, a lack of transparency with researchers. So already having seen the foxes being buzzed with a drone, I was a bit cautious with them. And so I was very careful to tell them, hey, you need to watch for signs of stress in these animals. You know, if a fox takes off running, or if a mom fox is not coming back to her den because you're sitting right beside the hole, you need to stop, right? Like if the mom can't get to her den to feed her pups, you need to move away. So that interaction had already happened. And after that, I started to notice that there was a lot of secrecy with what was going on. So they would be radioing back and forth with each other. One guy would be on the den and the other guy would be in camp, and I would be in camp, and the one guy on the den would radio to the guy in camp and start talking about the foxes. And the guy would mute his radio so that I couldn't hear what the guy was saying in certain circumstances. So I started to notice things like that. Thankfully, a second crew came in kind of halfway through. And when you get another crew coming in, then people are a bit more refreshed and they feel like they're at the start of their time as well. And so there wasn't a lot of urgency. In this crew, there were a couple of camera guys. The guide stayed on, and then we had the director. And I found that when a director was present, it was way, way better than when there was no director present, because the director of the shoot, she had much more of an ethical approach to working with animals, although I still found that some things were kept secret from me. But I found that she was a lot more transparent with me about what was going on fox dens, and she would ask me if I felt comfortable with certain things, and so I really appreciated that. And I just think that bringing a new crew on brought this whole new fresh perspective to the wildlife shoot. So that's really what my experience was like with a wildlife filmmaking crew. Would I do it again? Absolutely. It was a lot of fun, but I think I would probably start out the filming period with a meeting with everybody, with researchers and filmmakers and everyone, and just make sure that everyone is on the same page on how wildlife are going to be treated. So if you think of the top 3 names in wildlife filmmaking, you're probably thinking of the name of the company that I worked with. So keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for foxes that have a little bit of blurring right beside their ears, because my foxes are tagged. And so they had to digitally remove all of the tags from the foxes that they took video of. That's probably a really good way to figure out that those are my foxes. But yeah, keep an eye out for that, and I will see you guys hopefully in a video fairly soon. Bye.